First of all, thank you, Alesh. Thank you for being perfectly on time. That was awesome. Hello to everybody in this call. My name is Thomas Hampel. I'm the director at HCL Product Management. I'm responsible for the HCL Domino Server, as you can see here on my first slide. And if you can see my video feed, I'm saying hello to all of you from the wonderful city of Dresden, which is not too far away from the Czech Republic. The Sutol team asked me to provide you with a small technical overview of what's about to come in Domino 12.01, and they only gave me 20 minutes, so we have to hurry up a little bit to get through the details. So let's get started. As usual, we are talking about a Domino version that has not been released, and with any future statement, any forward-looking statement, I have to add this legal slide. You are aware of that already. Now, before we go into the technical details, let me just recap or remind you that I am not the one and only product manager at HCL. This is our team here. So you probably know Barry Rosen already, who is leading the entire Domino portfolio, which includes the Notes client, for instance. The Notes client is managed by Agnes, my colleague here, shown in the middle right. We also have same time managed by Gini Saini, which is shown to the lower left, and Ketan to the lower right, taking care of HTML and safe links. And last but not least, Martin Lechleiter on top right, he's taking care of Domino Vault. Now that you know the team, you know exactly whom to contact in case you have any questions or would like to discuss more details about the product roadmap. This session is about Domino 12.01, and you will be asking, when is the time for your Christmas present? So when is Domino 12.01 going to be released? And I'm going to say, for the first time ever, I'm going to make this statement that the date that you need to save is the December 14. So just a couple of days of waiting time, and then you can find Domino 12.01 and the supporting packages on FlexNet for you available to download. Alesh was talking about the components on the client side. He was already covering the Notes client, the DOMI integration, and so on. So I will be focusing on the server side features. So let's get started. I think Richard already mentioned that one of the key features in Domino 12.01 is something that's called DKIM. It's Domain Keys Identified Mail, and it is technology that's used in the email capability, in the email environment, that's used to prevent spoofing of emails. It's widely used on the internet for companies to check if the incoming email is a valid email. So that means if you are using Domino for mail, you need to make sure that the emails that you are sending are properly DKIM signed, so the outbound email needs to be properly signed. As you can see, the vote count, 347 votes, was the number of customers that have been voting for this idea in our ideation portal, and we thought it's about time to add that feature to Domino. So this is what you will get in 12.01. And for those of you who don't really know how it's working, how this is working, I have added a little flow chart to this slide to explain how it's technically working. So imagine you are about to write an email. That email will be sent to your Domino server, and you want to send this email to a recipient mail server. So what's happening behind the scenes? When you set up DKIM, you need to have control over your company DNS record. And you will create two keys, so-called private key and a public key. The private key goes into your Domino server, and this is what the server will use for signing outbound mail. And the public key is stored as a DNS text record so that anybody on the internet can validate if that DNS record belongs to you. So The email that you are sending through the Domino server will be signed, and when the recipient mail transport agent or the recipient mail server is receiving that email, he will just look up a DNS text record and validate that signature. And if the signature is valid, then of course deliver the email to the recipient. That was, like I said, a highly requested item, and outbound email definitely being the first and foremost request here. There are requests for even more, and that is about to come. But the very good message is you'll get DKIM outbound with 1201 in, like I said, just a couple of days. Another very important feature is IDN, internationalized domain names. And I need to explain this because it's not obvious. When you have an email address, the email address consists of your name, then the @ sign, and then a so-called domain part. Everything on the right-hand side of the email address is the domain part. And according to official internet standards, the amount, the kind of characters that you can put into the domain name have been extended to also allow the inclusion of country-specific characters. A good example is our neighbor country, the country of Austria, which in German is called Österreich. So that is a country special character, a so-called umlaut here, the so-called Ö. And in the current situation, Domino was not able to send nor receive emails from and to domains that use an umlaut or that use a country-specific character. Now, that is a problem because there are various countries around the globe who would like to emphasize their local characters, their local language, and thereby the usage of internationalized domain names becomes more and more popular. For instance, I know that certain government entities in Austria would like to change their email address to use Österreich in their email address. And of course, if you want to send or receive an email to our neighbor country, to a government institution, for instance, then your email system must be able to send or receive emails from and to those domains. And this is exactly what internationalized domain names, IDN, is about. There are, like I said, a couple of other domains, a couple of other regions that use country-specific characters, like here Russia or China use their country-specific characters for email top-level domains even. So that's becoming more and more popular. You will get that with Domino 1201, but I have to admit there is a special details that I need to make you aware of. And this is everything in front of the @ sign. So the username, so to say, the local part of the email address, that currently cannot include internationalized characters or country-specific characters. Because this is a completely different standard. This standard is called Internationalized Email Addresses, EAI. And that is about to come. We are about to work that in Domino. But the most important part is to address the domain portion of it. So if you like to know how this is working, then please refer to that link that I had put down here and make sure that you use this in your configuration. All right, up next, what do we have to offer? The Domino Server version 12 introduced a new capability to manage SSL certificates just in a Domino database. I'm sure here in the SUTOL conferences, you have been talking about this before. So that's a Domino database to manage your certificates. And based on your feedback, there were a number of improvement requests that we are now adding to the product. For instance, now we include the capability to import and export certificates from PEM file format, as well as the import and export capability from the PKCS12 file format. Another feature, another important feature in my opinion, is the usage of so-called micro CAs, which can turn in Domino into its own certificate authority, which will then issue SSL certificates. That's not only very useful for testing or for developers who want to quickly set up an SSL certificate in their own local environment, a local environment which maybe doesn't have an internet connection, but that also offers a great potential for future automation and extensibility. So take a look at what's about to come here in the future and try it out yourself. Another question or another request was to enable the new certificate manager. Customers do not want to configure a DS API filter, and that's now no longer needed. Domino 12.01 will just enable the certificate manager automatically. You don't have to change your server config for that. And I'm very proud of the last bullet point here on this chart. We have provided the capability to integrate with DNS providers, which means if you have a Domino environment that is not able to receive HTTP connections from the internet. So to say, if your Domino environment runs completely behind locked doors, then in order to configure Let's Encrypt, you need to use the so-called DNS API. And unfortunately, the DNS API is not the same depending on what DNS provider you are using. There are many different ways of automating this part. We have established an open source repository where the configuration settings for various DNS providers will be shared. We've started with a couple of them, and you are invited to add your local DNS provider configuration to that Git repository. So be my guest, take a look at this, and if you have any provider that we haven't listed, then please contribute to the repository and make sure that other customers can also take a benefit of the Let's Encrypt DNS API integration. I need to look a bit on the time, so let me hurry up here. Next up, the Domino server also provides the capability to configure a Domino server fully automatically through a JSON file, through a text file that includes all your configuration settings. And 12.01 is enhancing this capability with the option to automatically register users at startup and to automatically set up the TLS SSL configuration and to automatically configure directory assistance. This is especially of interest for business partners who would like to provide a complete Domino server configuration in a box with maybe an application already deployed and so on. So you can then have, for instance, a Docker container, and by starting the Docker container, it will be configured perfectly. It will deploy the Domino application. It will enable SSL. It will configure directory assistance, will deploy your demo user accounts, and all of that is done in just a few minutes. So that's really a big benefit for business partners. For our customers, I think it's highly important to make sure that you can run your Domino server anywhere where you like them to run. And also you need to make sure that you can back up your Domino servers with whatever backup software you are using. And one of the most popular backup software out there is Veeam. There has been a high and long-standing request in AHA to provide an integration between the new Domino Backup Manager and the Veeam backup solution. And we have provided that with Domino 12.01. We are now providing support for third-party restore, meaning if you have a third-party backup software that you're using with a Domino integration, then you can use the Domino database in order to manage the restore that will then be kicked off by the third-party application. We also have published an open source repository that describes how to configure the Domino Backup Manager to work closely with a Veeam. So there are some scripts that are needed, but basically, if you are a customer using Veeam and you are using Domino, you can now perfectly combine these two and have your backups being managed just from within a Domino database. Isn't that great? Need to hurry up. Like I said, I only was given 20 minutes of time. So small, but in my opinion, a very important enhancement of the next version is a new tool that we are including in Domino. It's a database. It's called Compare DBs. It's a simple Domino application, which is quite powerful. It is mainly targeted to developers and administrators who work with the application design, or template design. What the tool does, it can compare two NSF or NTFs with each other and highlight what the difference is. So imagine, for instance, you have a mail template and a modified mail template by someone. So you can run this tool to find out what exactly is the difference between those two templates so that you can reapply the changes to the version 12 mail template, for instance. We haven't been advertising this tool a lot until now, but I think it's very important for the developers out there. So please take a look and provide feedback, whether you like it or whether there needs to be some improvements. So I really would love to hear your feedback. Talking about developers, it also needs to be noted that we have released a new CAPI toolkit that actually was already done end of August this year, but it is unlocking all the business partners and developers who are developing third-party add-ons to the Domino server. This release now includes the make files so that you can more easily build your projects against the Domino version 12 API. There will be another Domino 12.01 CAPI toolkit, but that can only be released after Domino 12.01 has shipped. Okay, what other improvements? So I said the auto configuration of Domino includes the ability to create an ID vault, configure SSL, and so on. But we also improved tools like the entitlement tracker. The entitlement tracking tool that was introduced in version 12, we heard from our customers that you would like to create a monthly report and store the monthly report locally. So this feature is now available in 12.01. We also have to talk about features and components that are no longer shipped in the next version. And I need to say that very clearly that we are removing the very old version of the AD sync tool that was, I think, introduced in, I don't know, maybe Domino version 6, version 7. It was really a long, long time ago. And it's no longer needed because in version 11, we have introduced the new deal sync tool. So when we remove AD sync, that means the old version is being removed. We also do a little bit of housekeeping by removing obsolete templates. And there still is one feature, one template that is being worked on, and that's the Domino block template. We found a potential security issue here that relates to the version of Dojo that is used, and developers are trying to fix that. So it may be removed if we are not able to fix it in time. And because we are removing this only because we are not going to ship any insecure product components. However, our goal as of now is to include the template. Again, the assumption here is that this security issue will be fixed before we are shipping the product. A quick recap on what you need to be aware of. Of course, we are updating our system requirements. On the Nodes client side, of course, we are introducing support for the latest operating systems, like, for instance, Windows 11. And on the Domino server side, same thing. Windows Server 2022 is being introduced, but we also are removing support for old operating systems, like, for instance, Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2. This version of Windows Server is no longer supported by Microsoft, and that's why we as a vendor have to pull this support as well. There are more details. I'm going to provide you with the slide deck and the links to the system requirements so that you can check. Just for the sake of time, fast forward here. What you need to be aware of is that various operating systems are going out of support. For instance, Windows Server 2016 is going to be end of support 1st of January or 11th of January 2022. And as you probably know, on macOS, the old version of Mojave were taken out of support as well. So we cannot support those operating systems any longer. A quick, and I hope Philipp and Peter, I hope I have a minute or two more.
Yes, please go on.
Quick one about the Domino Designer. I'm not sure if Aleš mentioned it or maybe Martin before, that the Notes client version 12.02 introduces a new desktop user interface, meaning the workspace icons will have a high resolution database icon. And that means our Domino designers, our Domino developers need to be capable of building applications with a high resolution icon. And there was a webcast last week, about how to design these high resolution icons. So if you are developing Domino applications, I can only highly encourage you to take a look at this webinar. There is a recording. You can just scan the QR code and watch the replay. I think it's just like 30 or 40 minutes of a webinar that I did with the design team. And we are also providing you with the tools and the templates to design your own icons and really provide high quality applications in the future. In the Domino Designer client itself, there are some notable improvements. For instance, one feature that we added was to optimize the full text index of an application. We allow a developer to define which fields should be included or excluded from a full text index. And that has two benefits. First of all, it will make the indexing faster. And secondly, it will make it more accurate, more precise. You get the results that you're looking for and not the results from any hidden field in the full text index. There are a number of fixes, of course, in 12.01. Content assist, meaning the type ahead for JavaScript, that's working again. Numerous fixes based on your feedback in Bootstrap 4 were introduced. And I think you will all love that the matter of fact that we are releasing a new 64-bit Domino Designer client. This 64-bit Designer client is starting as a beta first because there are customers, partners that have developed add-ons for the designer, and that's why we would like to collect the feedback on how these third-party components are working in comparison with the 64-bit Designer client. So that's why the 64-bit Designer is right now English only, and it's a beta version. We're intending to release that once we've collected all your feedback. And that's why this is a call to action. If you're developing Domino apps, get the 64-bit Designer client, try it out yourself, especially provide feedback on performance and stability. So what's up next? We've done a lot this year. And as you know, in just a couple of days, 12.01 is being released. With that, we also plan to release a new version of HTMO as well as Volt 105. In the first quarter of next year, we will then ship the Group 3 language translations for 12.01 and the CAPI toolkit. We also are planning to provide you with a Domino REST API release or a starting point here. I think Richard mentioned that in his presentation. So there's quite a lot of interesting stuff lined up for that. And I think there is a presentation about the Domino REST APIs, not right after my session, but maybe in half an hour or so.
Right after your session.
Oh, right after mine. Okay, then I can just say, hey, there is some interesting stuff about this Domino REST API, and more details are provided by the next speaker. So sorry for rushing through my slide deck here, but I hope I was providing you with at least some interesting features about what's about to come in 12.01.